What did the Vorlons do to you, Lyta? Who? What are you?
I've only recently begun to understand it myself. You know, the Vorlons used telepaths as weapons during the Shadow War, but no one stopped to consider was that in a war, you have a certain number of small weapons, a certain number of medium-sized weapons, and one or two big ones. The kind of weapons you drop when you are out of small weapons and the medium weapons, and you've got nothing left to use.
Someone like that would be the telepathic equivalent of a thermonuclear device, a doomsday weapon.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Garibaldi.
Can God make a rock so big that even he can't lift it?
Yes, I've heard it, but...
I wonder if that's the wrong question. Wonder if the right question is, can God create a puzzle so difficult, a riddle so complex, that even he can't solve it? What if that's us? Maybe a problem like this is God's way of doing to us a little of what we do to him.
Life has changed. It's a good thing.
On an all-new Babylon 5.
First Londo, then Garibaldi. You're drunk. If you're gonna fire me, please just do it. Now this.
Am I under arrest? What's the charge?
Aiding and abetting terrorist activities back home.
You cannot stop someone who's been touched by Vorlons.
Let them go or I'll blow the back of your skull off.
She is extremely powerful, very dangerous.
What did the Vorlons do to you, Lyta?
On an all-new Babylon 5. Next Wednesday at 10. Exclusively on TNT.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Grey Council.
Hey everybody, it's Scott. I just wanted to give you a heads up that this episode gets a little heavy. We're going to be discussing abortion, alcoholism, and if those topics are not to your liking, I completely get it, and we'll be back next week. If not, we'll go ahead and dive in. Thanks. Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Grey 17, a Babylon 5 podcast, a part of the Front Row Network and NPR Illinois Community Voices. We're a group of newbies watching Babylon 5 for the very first time, and a group of first ones watching Babylon 5 for the umpteenth time. And we are here today to talk about Wheel of Fire from Season 5. I am Scott. With me is...
Kevin.
Jessi. Nicole.
Mike.
Blake.
And Emily.
Jessi, I'm going to need some more energy from you for the show.
I am praying for all you hoes. Kevin, you missed it. That's what my shirt says.
What makes you think us hoes need prayed for?
You all need Jesus, whether you believe in him or not.
You're Sky Daddy.
I'm agnostic, so.
Okay. Well, then you do not need Jesus. Okay.
On that note, welcome. We before we get started, just a reminder to check all the links down below. We are on our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then also we do have our Patreon, which is going to help us drink in a few weeks. We intend to use that for that. Thank you to our producers listed down below who are the members of our Grey Council who donate the most to our Patreon every single week. Along with that, be sure to click the like, subscribe, follow, do whatever it takes to make sure that you've liked and thumbs upped us. We are getting down to the end here. We are looking at 7 episodes left, and we would really love to get some more folks on this journey. I've already heard from folks who are just starting to listen, and they're having comments of way back in season 1, and I'm like, oh man, just wait. Just
hang in there.
Just wait. It gets more interesting, I promise.
Oh, we were so young.
I was so optimistic.
No, you weren't.
Speaking of
Okay,
comments,
for me, relative.
Speaking of comments, we didn't have a review this week, so if you can leave us a review on Apple, that would be great as well too. But I did mention the timeline of what we're going to be going through here for the next few episodes. I will do that again, but we did get a message on our YouTube channel that said, "Hell no! This is a moronic sequence. Don't do the movies before Sleeping in Light. Totally breaks up the continuity of the final 3 episodes." It doesn't. The movies are in continuity the way we're watching them. But thanks for playing. Appreciate it. So we're going to do tonight Wheel of Fire. And then next week, Objects in Motion, followed by Objects at Rest. And then we're going to do 3 movies. The Road Home, as Jessi calls it, the cartoon one. The River of Souls, Call to Arms. And then we will do our final episode proper, which will be Sleeping in Light. I say proper because some of us crazies may want to do some other things too in terms of Crusade or a couple of the other movies that we don't have in the timeline, but I'm not sure if that will get done or not. So the end of the show proper will come with Sleeping in Light. So that will be 7 weeks from now is the plan. We'll go ahead and dive in to Wheel of Fire. And Jessi, I believe you have a synopsis for us.
Yeah, and I hate both of the ones that we came up with. So
excellent. Do your own.
Let's see. Garibaldi continues on his drunk fuckboy shit, which pisses me the fuck off. Lockley and Garibaldi decide that they do have one thing in common, which is so evidently fucking convenient for the plot. And Lyta and Garibaldi find themselves in a confrontation that is going to start some shit. You're welcome.
Excellent. Let's go into our first impressions from our newbies, and we'll go over to Nicole first. Nicole, first impressions of Wheel of Fire.
So this was quite the interesting episode, I thought. It was good to see Lockley back right from the get-go. She was the first person we saw on screen. Jakar's followers were growing, so that was kind of funny. They have dolls of him and statues now. The whole Lyta thing was kind of crazy. It makes me sad that Jakar's leaving. And there was one part in this episode where Garibaldi said with everybody leaving, it felt like it wouldn't be the same. And I kind of felt that too. Like it made me really sad. Like as each episode is unfolding, I feel like we're coming to a close and it's like, I don't want it to end. It's making me kind of sad. I really enjoyed Delenn yelling a curse word, yelling bastards, and then, fainting. That wasn't enjoyable, but we finally find out that she's pregnant, which we knew they were going to have a kid. So that was cool. The whole Garibaldi Lyta thing, that was kind of shady back alley stuff there. I will say I was pretty proud of Sheridan that he stepped up and kind of got in Lyta's face. Well, with the gun, I guess. And then Lockley kind of knocked her out, which was pretty awesome. A lot of action in this. A lot of people kind of stepping up to the plate. A lot of people moving and shaking. So this was kind of a big episode, but it had a really sad ending with Londo just sitting in the dark by himself. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. It felt a little bit like emotional whiplash, but it was a good episode.
I love the fact that you think somebody pointing a gun at your temple is getting in your face.
Well,
that says a lot.
I was trying not to give it away until we talked about it.
Jessi, first impressions.
It was fine. I don't know, it was enjoyable-ish. We've had this conversation before. I don't enjoy the Garibaldi plot where he's drinking and now all of a sudden he's fixed. Love that because that's not how it works. The Lyta stuff was interesting. Love to see Garibaldi. God damn it.
Well, he's Jerry, so you're
Jakar. I started to say Jakar.
You weren't even close. Okay.
No, Garibaldi came into my. I love to see Jakar. He is clearly one of my favorites to this day. So it was an okay episode. I get somewhat triggered every time we deal with the alcoholism shit, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We will be talking in detail about this plot, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail with Jerry Doyle's story than we usually do. So just keep in mind that we will be getting into discussions of alcoholism on this episode. Emily, first impressions.
It was fine.
Can you tell there's only 7 episodes left? Can you tell?
Can you tell?
Can you tell we've been doing this for over 2 years?
Not episodes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, episodes of the podcast. How about that?
Yes, okay.
I started to wonder if this was the intended plot for the episode or if this was actually like a covert intervention for Jerry Doyle.
You would be correct, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, since it felt very directed at him for obviously multiple reasons, not just for the storyline. Yeah, we found out Delenn's pregnant, which just makes me fucking thrilled. Ready to throw a baby shower over here. And yeah, I was kind of sad about, Jakar maybe not being on the last couple episodes if he's leaving the station.
And we'll go over to our first ones. Mike, first impressions.
To me, it's not the most exciting episode because it doesn't have a lot of the sort of plot. What am I trying to say? Like, no space mysteries. How about that? That said, it is a solid episode. It's got a lot of enthralling plot lines with characters. Some really good stuff from Tracy Scoggins and Jerry Doyle. I also enjoyed once again seeing Jakar and Richard Biggs as Franklin kind of get back together and revisit their previous episode dynamic. And it is kind of nice to see that they haven't completely forgotten about the telepath storyline, because I think I've sensed from questions that the newbies have asked in previous episodes, there's been a lot of lack of closure, I think, related to that. A lot of people have been asking, like, is that really it? Is that really the last we're going to see of it? And, now we have our answer to some degree that no, there is still definitely some stuff going on and they have not forgotten about it. And fun to see Lyta continue to evolve in the show. So while I do agree that it's a bit sad and there's a bit of a sour note, we're starting to see more of the main cast depart and go off on their own stories as they, I think, know that the show is about to metamorph into something different. All in all, it was still a pretty good one.
Kevin, first impressions.
This episode is directed by Janet Greek, and she's got several of the good episodes from the run of the show. She has some callbacks in this episode that are kind of cool that I'll talk about. But I think by far the best thing about this episode is the scene between Lockley and Garibaldi. I think that is some amazing acting, particularly on the part of Tracy Scoggins. And it's definitely the meatiest acting that she's gotten to do thus far, in my opinion. And I thought it was spectacular. The scene with Sheridan and Garibaldi is pretty good too, but I think that's the one that steals the show. The Jakar stuff, I think, it was meant to be lighthearted until it wasn't. They kind of poked some fun at it at the beginning, but then it got more and more serious as it goes. And, by the end of it, he's like, well, I got to leave. And that's a sad thing, but it's interesting to take that tack on it. It's very much in the growth that you're seeing from Jakar over the series run, which is a really cool story, as we've talked a lot about before. I do like this one. It's not the meatiest of episodes overall, but I do enjoy this episode.
Blake.
I actually really like this episode, and I get some of what Kevin and Mike are saying, but I also think the reality is we're a handful of episodes away from the finale, and we're past the point where we're going to have these really meaty episodes that are opening up new mysteries or new boxes. At this point, we're tying up the bows on everything, and we're tying up the various threads and strings. And I think this episode really plays into that and starts wrapping up the various character arcs and stories, at least for the series proper, that we're seeing with, you've got Jakar and Lyta, you've got all of these different pieces that are being kind of tied up and wrapped up and ready to move on with the show. So I really am enjoying where it's headed. And I like this episode also for the acting in it. One with being Lockley. You've got that scene at the beginning when Jakar comes back to Babylon 5 and she greets him, and she's just kind of got this smirk as they walk out into the arrivals area, and Jakar's confronted with his followers, and she just sort of, nope, you got this, have fun, and just walks off the side exit and leaves Jakar there to deal with it. Love that part also where they confront Lyta and Sheridan walks up and puts the gun to her head. And finally, we get the payoff of the line we've used so many times through this podcast of touched by a Vorlon, and how she's not the only one that's been touched by a Vorlon. And when it comes up, like, you can't be everywhere. And Lockley goes, yeah, you're right. Just turns around and decks Lyta. I love that part with that whole scene. And overall, I like this one. I think it's a very strong episode. Usually we've seen in some of these shows as they get towards the end, they start to really weaken. And I will say season 5 is not the strongest of the seasons, But some of these final episodes, I think, are the strongest of even season 5. And I think it really shows and does a good job with this as it wraps things up.
Yeah, I agree with you, Blake. I actually appreciate that we're not getting new lore and new big story beats, because it gives the characters some time to kind of deal with issues that they've been building up through for the entire show. You've got the Garibaldi situation being dealt with and continue to be dealt with. Jakar's growth continues, and we get Lockley, which we haven't had much Lockley lately, so she gets to play around a little bit as well too. And if we had a big space battle or what have you, you wouldn't be able to get those beats. And to your point too, I really appreciate that they get to bring this show in for a landing. All too many shows get just canceled. I mean, look at season 4. If TNT hadn't picked up season 5, would you all be excited about the fact that Deconstruction of Falling Stars would have been the end of season 4? They didn't have enough time to say goodbye, but now they do, and we're getting that. So I do appreciate that we're getting that. So let's go ahead and dive into the conversation. Well, where do you guys want to go first?
Let's start with the Lyta arrest scene, because that was probably my favorite one, like Blake said.
Yeah, let's talk about the Lyta story in total then.
Okay. When Earth Force contacted Lockley and was talking about the Psychor stuff, before they could even get it out, I knew it was going to be Lyta. I was like, well, who else is it? With the whole writing of Save Byron on there and all that, I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely her. So when they went to go arrest her, if you notice, they had her completely surrounded, right? And I knew she wasn't going to go easy. I assumed she was going to take control of all the security people, but instead she basically controlled everyone in the Zocalo and like had them doing the tapping and all that, which was crazy. So then she's like, well, I choose not to be arrested and blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, in my head, I'm like, what the fuck are they going to do? And then all of a sudden you see the gun and I'm like, oh shit, who is it? And then it was Sheridan. And when he said that, you're not the only one who's been touched by the Vorlons, I was literally yelling at the screen. Okay. And then when Lyta gets snotty and was like, well, you're not going to always be around. And then Lockley knocks her out. I was like, I fucking love her. So Lockley won my respect right there when she knocked her out. So that whole scene and that whole dynamic was so cool. And like, he's like, let them all go. And he just lets the people go and they go along their business. They had no idea that they were even being controlled. It was just crazy. So then when Garibaldi goes to visit her, what really fucked me up was when they kind of made it a little bit of a cliffhanger, because she goes, I have a counter offer for you. And then they switch to the next scene. I was like, what the fuck is the counter offer? I was so mad. I don't do well with waiting. I'm impatient. So obviously it paid off at the end and we found out what the counter offer was and that he's going along with it. Really, essentially, it's kind of crazy because I always knew Lyta and Garibaldi were cool, but like, did I think they would end up working together to take down Psychor and Bester? No. Am I happy about it? Kinda. Fuck Psychor. I'm interested to see what's going to happen now. Like, how are they actually going to pull this off? I know she explained the whole thing about the 2 bank accounts and all that stuff, but like, did she say they were going to continue like the terroristy type stuff, or were they just going to kind of lay low? Like, I didn't catch that.
Oh no, yeah, the second bank account, the real bank account, is going to be used to, fuck with Psychor. Yeah, she's absolutely going to continue that.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, so they're still going to do that. But yeah, that was an unexpected twist that I did not see coming. Again, maybe it's naivety or whatever, naive. I don't know how to fucking say that word. I didn't expect to see that coming, and I'm interested to see. I mean, there's only a couple more episodes left, but I'm curious to see how that's going to play out now. But I kind of feel like they're an evil genius duo.
To the Sheridan point, I think it shows like our complaint about Sheridan is that, he's not a diplomat, but when he has to take action, he does decent. When he needs to pull a gun on somebody and threaten to shoot their face off, he's doing okay. When he needs to stop a war, maybe not. Jessi.
Lyta, in her new level, is she a bomb? Can I say bomb on this podcast? Is she a bomb? Is she like a... Because they likened her to a bomb, so she is like the ultimate of weapons.
She's the Vorlons Manhattan Project.
I don't know what that means, but okay. Yep.
The nuclear bomb. Okay. Dropping on Hiroshima.
There was a whole movie about it. It won Oscars.
I didn't watch it. I did watch Oppenheimer, but I did not watch the Manhattan Project. So
Oppenheimer is the Manhattan.
I clearly did not pay attention that well, is what I'm hearing, because I watched the goddamn thing, but maybe I just wasn't there. You know what? I'm done. I'm getting off the podcast now.
So excited for Barbie.
I actually fuck off. All right, I'm done. I'm muting myself again. I hope you all had a
was
good
that
time.
2024's makeout movie? I'm just wondering. It's like
No,
Schindler's List in 1996 and
Jesus.
Oppenheimer.
Kevin.
I either want to be talked into or talked out of liking this storyline because the aspect of it I don't like is Lyta becoming a terrorist. I don't have a problem with her anger towards Psycor. I don't have a problem with Garibaldi's either. And in fact, him becoming pretty violent towards Psycor, it feels like it makes sense. But I'm not convinced that Lyta becoming a full-on don't care who the collateral damage is terrorist fits with who we've seen before, and I would love some other perspectives.
Like,
well, I'm gonna change direction here and try to see if I can't challenge Kevin. Which, by the way, I think we need a new segment on this show of fun facts with the Gray 17 host, and we can just throw out these random little tidbits that some of our co-hosts come up with and throw out there from time to time. Be a very popular segment. But I think as far as Lyta being more radicalized, I think it comes from several places. And I think looking back across the storyline overall, you had Lyta come back clearly changed from the Vorlons. And then going into the whole Shadow War where she basically was used by Sheridan and the Alliance to where afterwards didn't really go anywhere. And I think at the time we criticized that as a lack of writing, really using Lyta for much. But really, it left Lyta out there dangling and getting pushed around until she ended up with Byron and the rogue telepaths. And to quote our good friend Ryan, who I just remembered wanted to be on this episode with us. Whoops, we forgot to send him the invite, I think. But yeah, sorry, our bad. But when she ended up there,
it was all Blake's fault.
Yeah, it is. When we ended up there, or when she ended up there with Byron and had the same experiences and that he shared with her of his experience with Psycor and the things that Bester and them had done, as Ryan called it, it was the orgasm that radicalized the hippies. And I think that's what set Lyta in motion of unlocking the whole thing, that they were manipulated by the Vorlons to be telepaths in the first place. The Vorlons continued to manipulate them. Psycor went along and was part of this. And it radicalized her at that point. And Lyta even admits in this one with Garibaldi is, I clearly don't know what I'm doing here. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to trace it back to me in the first place. So it's not that she's even necessarily a good terrorist. She is just angry and wants to lash out and is using the resources she has to do it in the ways she thinks she can.
Jessi.
To be a badass, you have to actually be a badass. And I don't buy it. Like, I'm sorry. I'm hot take. I think that Lyta's not a strong enough person to be the person that they're writing her to be. She has been a follower her entire previous 4.5 seasons. So I have a hard time seeing her as this strong, independent Manhattan Project. Like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't see it. And you know what? Everybody's going to tell me I'm wrong, and that's fine. You guys can all have your opinions, and you're more than welcome to be incorrect. But I just don't. I see her. She might be mad, but she's not like this strong, independent, I'm a badass bitch. Like, I just don't see it. I don't buy it.
Well, not everybody can be you, Jessi.
Not everybody can be Ivanova and Lockley. I hear you, but
wait, is that confirmation that you actually like Lockley now?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I told you weren't getting that.
I will counter and say that, I mean, it takes strength to not resort to violence. And so I think maybe Lyta playing into exactly the opposite of what Byron stood for in his peaceful attempt at getting away from Psycor, that, maybe she is showing a bit of her weakness by resorting to terrorism.
Nicole.
So I think it was Lockley who said that, she's really pissed, or maybe it was Sheridan, but they were commenting about how pissed Lyta is, right? How she's really pissed and they don't really know what she's going to do or how she's going to react. I don't think they're necessarily trying to make Lyta some badass or some like bad bitch. I think it's more so she's so pissed off that like she's seeing red and she's just out for blood at this point, which I can understand that because I am not intimidating. I'm intimidating in a sense, but like I'm all bark and no bite. If I was going to fight you, it would have to be a real big reason. But like I've been to the point where I've just seen red and I don't even care what's in front of me. I want to fucking destroy everything. So I feel like that's kind of where she's at. Do I think she's a terrorist at heart? No. Do I think that she meant to follow this path? Probably not. But I think that at this point, she's just sick and tired of being pushed around. And she even said that. She's sick and tired of being pushed around, stepped on, taken advantage of, and shit on. So there's only so much of that people take, and then they break and they snap, and then they're volatile. And they even said that she's volatile and they don't really know how she's going to react. So I see where you're coming from, Jessi, but I don't necessarily think that that's what they're trying to make her out to be. I just think she's volatile as fuck and she's pissed, and there's no way to control her. And clearly her powers are too big for anybody else to even try. So that's where I think it's more dangerous in this sense, is that she is not acting in her right mind.
Emily.
I wasn't a fan of how she dealt with Garibaldi because it really felt like just another manipulation tactic because she doesn't really give a shit about other people anymore. She's just going to do what she needs to do to get back at Psychor. And Garibaldi doesn't like Bester for obvious reasons. And she's going to use that as much as she can to her advantage. And I don't know, it felt icky. Like Garibaldi's already struggling with his drinking again. And it seems like she's taking advantage of someone who's in a really vulnerable position on top of, terrorist activities. So
she is absolutely taking advantage because she doesn't give a shit at all. She doesn't give a shit.
I get you can reach a point where you're just like, I don't fucking care, but to resort to that level, it's so icky. So icky.
Jessi.
I just don't, I guess I can't get on that same page because, like, sure, can you get to a point where you just don't give a shit about anything? Absolutely. But this chick fucked David Koresh and all of a sudden she wants to burn the whole world down. Like, it doesn't happen that quickly. Like, she went from being a very, like, walked on individual throughout the entire season. Every season that I've seen her in, she's been a doormat. And then all of a sudden she's making like strong demands, like, you pay me this much money or fuck you, we're not coming to see you. Like, okay, Billy Badass, calm down. Like, you've only been at this for a day and a half. So I'm not like, I get it. I understand you guys' points, but like, there's a difference between being weak and not giving a fuck and being like a strong ass, not giving a fuck and burning the whole world to the ground.
Exactly.
So
you made my point for me though, Jessi, because that's the arc and it's not that she fucked David Koresh. She watched David Koresh melt in fire. So she saw that his peaceful idea of making change pacifism doesn't work. So I think that would traumatize anyone, and that caused her to switch.
I get it. Like I said, I get it. But I do wholeheartedly believe that it started after they had sex. Because she totally bought into his bullshit. And maybe it's not bullshit. Don't let me that's not what I'm saying. She bought into his ideologies from the second that she had the, orgasm heard around the world. Like, that's it. I get it. But like, I just don't know how, I guess maybe I don't have the words. She just, there is being mad at the machine, which I feel like we can all understand. And there is being mad at the machine and having the ability to actually burn the world down. Like, she's trying to do it. And I hear her say, like, listen, clearly I don't know what I'm doing. But I also don't think that she's got the backbone for it. So, I mean, more power to her. Love the writing for this. But she's like, you can't portray somebody for 4.5 seasons as a doormat and then all of a sudden give her a backbone. Like, it doesn't happen that quickly, in my opinion. Maybe. I could be wrong.
Kevin.
The thing that I find compelling about this is exactly how targeted her anger is. It's directly at the Psychor. It's not like she's firebombing indiscriminately. The other thing that I find compelling is that, and Jessi, you actually kind of made this point to me. It feels like her experiences with Byron, particularly their night of passion, may have unlocked something perhaps that she may not have even been particularly aware of. But I find compelling the argument that power corrupts, and the fact that she has a lot of untapped power is corrupting her what would be normal judgment. It seems like that has a lot of sway over the person that she's becoming. I'm still not a huge fan of it, but I'm leaning more towards it makes more sense to me than it doesn't.
Blake.
To go back a little bit to what Jessi was saying, as far as being a doormat for all these seasons and now all of a sudden not being, there's a couple different aspects to touch on with that. One being when she had the orgasm heard around the universe, is part of that was unlocking the powers that she had. Because they, at that point, I don't even think Lyta realized the powers she had. It was with Byron that started exploring and seeing exactly what her powers were and how far things went.
Oh, he was exploring, all right.
Where so many had, wrong franchise. But the other part is even looking at human behavior and human psychology is how often does it happen where you've got the kid who's bullied in middle school, gets to high school and realizes that they're now the bigger kid because they had the growth spurt or whatever, and then that kid becomes the bully themselves. It happens quite a bit, actually. And you could look at this the same way where, yes, Lyta was that doormat, and then that key got unlocked of, I have more power than these people. I'm more powerful than the Psi-Corps. I don't need to be pushed around. I don't need to take this bullshit, and fuck anyone who's going to try to do this. So I can see where Lyta went from doormat to aggressor, because we see it all the time now in society where you have populations who have been bullied or otherwise that then turn around and end up being the aggressors or bullies themselves. So I can see where it makes sense in terms of how the writing and how the story went, especially if you go to, as Scott referred to it earlier, the hymnal of JMS, and you look at his experiences and the way he wrote. I can see where he got this arc and where he pulled it out of his own experiences with people and people in his own life.
Jessi.
Don't make points that make me think that I might have been wrong. I don't appreciate that. No, but it makes sense. So when Kevin said, first of all, I'm going to credit Kevin a little bit. When Kevin said that maybe it unlocked something that she didn't know, which clearly it did, right? Like clearly she learned a lot about herself that she either didn't remember. And you're 100% right. People do grow into be like Billy badasses after getting their asses kicked in middle school. But Lyta's been like super, super weak the whole fucking 4.5 seasons. It's hard for me to watch the transition. And I get it. She's mad. I get it. She's pissed. She's trying to take down a whole system that she spent the first 4.5 seasons running from. And there's the motivator, I guess. But I don't like to feel like I'm not right all the time.
To the JMS point, I love the fact that and I'm gonna make the counterpoint in a couple weeks, but I love the fact that JMS writes these people as not perfect. They are icky. They are assholes. They are people who will use other people to get their way because that's what people do. So it's, we've said it many times over the past couple of years, this ain't Star Trek. And so Lyta's going to use people because that's what she needs to do to get the job done.
That's what people have done to her the whole fucking...
Exactly. Zach couldn't even get her a damn pizza. Come on now. Let's move over because I know Emily wants to talk about it so much. Delenn's got a bun in the oven. Emily, what are your thoughts? I want to point out, you knew this was coming two seasons ago.
Sir,
because when Sheridan flashes forward 20 years, Delenn clearly says, our son is safe. David
I am aware
safe.
of that, and I was hoping it was some alternate timeline bullshit and something changed, and they wouldn't have a spawnling. But she spawned with him of all people.
She's married to him.
Based on how many times we've seen them in bed, there's probably been several spawnings.
Look, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to know about it. I just...
Woohoo!
Yeah, not very enthusiastic woohoo, but whatever.
As Ryan pointed out that... Sorry again, Ryan. It's all Blake's fault. As Ryan pointed out, he's probably a missionary guy all the time.
So boring. With that terrible hair. Yeah, I don't... Like, I think she'd be a great mom. It's nothing against her. Yeah, him and the dad jokes. Oh my God. Can we just, like, space him now so we don't have to hear dad jokes? because dad jokes are bad. He used to be like top
I
tier.
feel attacked.
I know, as a purveyor of dad jokes, fuck you.
Dad jokes are fucking
there are dad
awesome.
jokes that are funny, but his wouldn't be funny. They would just be bad and embarrassing, and you'd want to like crawl in a hole from secondhand embarrassment.
Kevin, let's be honest.
That's
Our
kind of
dad
our
jokes are
vibe.
probably
Yeah.
embarrassing.
I'm not hearing a problem.
That's kind of my whole vibe. I was telling dad jokes before I was a dad.
As someone who's known Kevin for quite a while, this is true.
I'm not throwing a baby shower. Well, I might still buy her a gift, but not for him.
Nicole.
First of all, I'm a supporter of dad jokes, so there you go. I'm actually excited to kind of see how this plays out. From the minute we found out that they had a kid, you guys know I was excited and I was on board. So are we going to get to...
It's not a werewolf, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But are we I have questions. Are we going to get to meet the kid? Are we going to get to see the pregnancy? There's only a couple episodes left. We're never going to get to meet this David. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I was happy to finally see it come to fruition that, oh, it's actually happening. Cool. But I was interested to kind of hear the discussion between Sheridan and Franklin, because Franklin was saying this is new territory. We don't exactly know. Because he was saying, is she going to be okay? Is she going to survive? And he goes, well, obviously I would choose her, but I would choose both. Franklin asked him flat out, like, what do you want the baby? They made it very clear that this is uncharted territory. It was interesting to kind of see that discussion, and also that happened in like the mid-90s.
Jessi.
I really found I have to be careful how they say this. I really found the conversation interesting that Sheridan is pro-choice, because that's exactly what we are talking about, is if we have to choose the life of the baby or the mother. Sheridan said, no, fuck that. Fuck the kids. Give me my wife back. So found it interesting. And I find that I wonder how many people watched it and had the same like, oh yeah, it's cool, I would choose my wife too, as they vote for pro-birth things. So I just need everybody to keep that in mind when they're thinking about who to choose for their wonderful little president in November.
And for those that like to tell us that Babylon 5 is just a sci-fi show,
right,
and we should stick to discussing the science fiction, guess what, motherfuckers? This thing was woke in the fucking 90s. Kiss my goddamn ass.
It just kills me when it comes to when you're talking about a medical choice that some people will still say, fuck my wife. I would rather the child maybe make it. It's so funny because I had this conversation when I was in high school before I clearly don't have kids, so it doesn't fucking matter now anyway. But like I had the conversation in my parenting class, because that's a weird thing to teach a fucking 16-year-old. It was, if you had the choice between it was you or the child, who would you choose? And I argued, I was the only one in class arguing for choosing the child, which is very interesting because I was in Missouri at the time. So I wonder how many of those people grew up to flip that choice, right? But like I always thought, oh, I've had a good life, right? Maybe the baby could do something crazy, like, cure cancer. But then I'm watching this and I'm like, he's making a choice of the person that he already knows. He already is a relationship with. And you know what? There's a possibility of maybe another baby someday. I don't know. It's pretty crazy that it was a 90s show and here we are again.
Mm-hmm. I also found it interesting at first, and I'll change my own opinion as I talk, that they were talking about Delenn while Delenn was behind glass and she couldn't be involved in the conversation. But then I thought back to my kids' births, and sometimes you have those conversations with the doctor in the hallway just because you have to. So it was definitely something that hit home for me as well too. But yeah, I mean, I love the fact, to Nicole's point and Jessi's point, this is a 90s show that is making a poignant conversation about abortion, about the life of the mother and all of that. And I really appreciate that. And yes, take your not woke bullshit out the door. Bye. Kevin.
Bye.
Yeah, I was reading, I want to reiterate a trigger warning on this, because this can be a tough conversation for a lot of people. But I was reading where Bruce Boxleitner was saying that he and his wife had a tough time with their third pregnancy of 3, and he had to draw on that for this scene, I guess. And I found that really kind of heartbreaking. Thankfully, everything with that was fine.
Emily.
Okay, this is actually one of the few scenes where I didn't hate Sheridan because I felt like he was being realistic.
Right.
Because he's not in a position where it would be easy or likely feasible for him to be a single parent on B5. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people around and there is some level of support network, but it's a lot. Having a kid is a lot, and especially not knowing because they didn't know if she could get pregnant, if there were additional complications or health issues. It was actually kind of reassuring to see him make the what feels like the most rational choice of, save her. Maybe they could figure out what went wrong so they could try again later, as opposed to like losing both, because that seems the more logical outcome of if they got to a point where they had to make a choice, that both would be lost.
Jessi.
It's interesting to me that they didn't have time to have this conversation prior to, right? And yet he made the best decision for him and what I feel like he was making for his family. He definitely did not take any time to think about it either. Franklin said, "Do you want this baby?" And he's like, "Well, hold on. Do I have to choose? If I do, this is who I choose. If not, I want both of them." And I feel like that just sums up pregnancy for most women also that have to go through these, either what some consider late term abortions. And I'm not talking about 8.5 months. When you're talking about past the first trimester and women are having to make this decision and being made out to be these terrible individuals who are just baby murders. As some people would say, they're, birthing their child and then murdering them, which is not happening, by the way. I feel like that just summed it up. Yes, if I have to choose my life or the child's, I'm going to choose mine.
So now we've discussed abortion as well as terrorism. Let's talk about alcoholism.
What a lighthearted episode.
The triumvirate. Here we go. So let's talk about Garibaldi and his situation.
Somebody else go first before I have to piss everybody off again.
Nicole.
A couple things about the whole Garibaldi dynamic with the alcoholism. First of all, Sheridan confronted him, which I thought was necessary. The interesting thing was Sheridan was basically like, yeah, I've known for a while. I just, basically didn't want to accept it, but it's obvious. And at first, Sheridan even admits that he was mad, but at this point, he's more disappointed. And he made it very clear to Garibaldi, like, this is on you to figure out. This is a you versus you thing. You need to get yourself straight, but we'll be here for you when you get it together. He could have fired him. He could have turned his back on him. And he made it a very clear point to say, I'm your friend. I'm here for you. And he even said he missed it with Franklin and it kind of broke his heart a little bit, and he didn't want to miss it with Garibaldi. He wanted to ensure that he knows that he's here, his job is here, and that he's supported, but it's on him to figure it out and to get help or whatever, do what he needs to do. I also really liked the Lockley Garibaldi conversation. We learned a little bit more about Lockley's past and about the girl who died of the overdose or whatever, that her friend died. We kind of talked about it a little bit and came to the conclusion that Lockley and her were like partying together, but Lockley was openly admitting that if she could snort it, smoke it, or drink it, she did, kind of thing.
Shoot it.
Yeah, and she basically was like telling Garibaldi, you're not alone. You could do with what you will with that information, So I really like how the characters in the show were supportive, but also like, get your shit together. She even went so far as to contact Lise and bring Lise to the station for him to give him that extra level of support, which I thought was really sweet because they did not have the best start, her and Garibaldi. So for her to go out of her way to get his lady there, and like, it was just really the level of care and support that he has that was shown to him, I thought was beautiful. Now it is going to be on him to make the decision and change. But I really liked the way that they handled it because I thought it was delicate but firm, if that makes sense. It was in a way of, we're here, we support you, we care about you, your job is safe, but we're not going to tolerate it anymore and it can't happen anymore. So you need to get right with it. But it also made me hope that that's exactly how it was in real life for him. Because I know we've talked about it and Jerry Doyle was kind of an asshole. I really hope that he had that support and that care and that there was some level of friendship and camaraderie. I don't know. Maybe when I read the book, I'll know more. But you know. I really hope that that's how it was in real life for him too, because it kind of made me sad a little bit knowing that that was also his real life, and I just hoped it was matched in the level of support.
Prepare to be sad. Jessi.
Cool.
First of all, everybody, welcome to my TED Talk. I'm so glad you could join me today. Listen, it's okay to be disappointed as a support person. So when I was watching Sheridan and he's like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Welcome to the life of every support individual in every alcoholic or addict's life ever. So I've said it before on the podcast and I'll say it again. It is okay to have your feelings. Your feelings are valid, and it is absolutely okay for you to put your feelings first before your family member or friend that is an addict. It's okay to set boundaries. And that's exactly what Sheridan did here. He said, you know what, listen, we love you, but you cannot work here because you have already cost people lives, and we're not going to continue to let it happen, because then it falls on us. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to feel like you're letting this person down, because at some point you could have to make a decision, and I hope you don't, but you could have to make a decision that it's you or them. So you either let them continue to drag you down and beat you, one day at a time, or you set those boundaries and you tell them that you love them and send them on our way. My issue with this whole episode is I get why the Lockley and Garibaldi scene was so impactful for a lot of people. But what I saw when I saw it was an alcoholic and a drug addict having a conversation. And a lot of the times those two do not interact well. They don't understand well. They don't, because a lot of the times an alcoholic will be like, that's cool, but I'm not you. I'm not a drug addict. I don't shoot things up. I don't put things in my nose. So I'm watching this from a lens that I can't unsee. So I'm watching it from a lens that I'm like, okay, I feel like he's like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm a heroin addict. That's you, not me. And my third and only point about this whole thing, and I will step down off my soapbox, is it's not as simple as I understand that the show is coming to an end, right? And everybody wants Garibaldi to magically be resolved, but we all know that that's probably not what's happening. And I mean, from real life, we know that's not what happened. So it's not that simple. And I love that they're trying to make it seem as such, like, here you go, please go fix yourself, everything's, let's snap our fingers and everything's good. No, the reality is that man died from alcoholism, and that's usually what happens. So I don't love that they set it up to be such a happy-go-lucky, like everybody's supportive, because at some point people get tired of the same shit every day, and it becomes less about support and more about self-preservation. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Kevin.
One thing is clear from watching this episode, and that's that Garibaldi does not deserve Lise. She's pretty great. Regarding Sheridan, I thought he handled it well in the moment. My question is, should he have done something sooner if he suspected that his head of covert intelligence was having problems with alcoholism? Because that's not a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I thought he handled it well in the moment. But you could certainly make the argument, and I think I will, that his good reaction, while partially born out of his experience with Franklin, was also born out of his relationship with his better half, Delenn, who seems to almost always handle a situation better than he does. So I cannot stress how much I really like the scene with Lockley. I will say that in my own personal experience with a family member with the whole drug addict versus alcoholism, that was my family member's viewpoint on it was, well, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm certainly not like you, a drug addict. And any amount of convincing of it's still addiction, it doesn't matter what you're addicted to, was
right.
Falls on deaf ears. So I do get that, but I still thought it was a very poignant scene, and I really enjoyed getting some more depth on Lockley that, as we've said, she's not in the season enough in my mind. So what we do get from her is important and precious, and I thought this was probably my favorite Lockley scene that I can recall, at least.
Blake.
Well, Kevin, you touched on it a little bit, the whole scene with Sheridan. I think there is some criticism of Sheridan here in if you suspect your head of covert intelligence is having issues with alcohol, that you let him continue in the job, causing all sorts of problems. But
problems like almost getting you killed.
Yeah. Wasn't there loss of life because of it?
A lot.
A lot. But I also wonder, at a certain point, JMS has signed his work before, and I wonder how much in that writing is JMS using Sheridan as a vehicle for his own thoughts on dealing with Jerry Doyle and Jerry Doyle's struggles off screen as showrunner and creator. And we know there were issues. I see Scott has the hymnal of becoming Superman open to chapter and verse to discuss this a little further.
Thank you for the segue.
But I really do think this is JMS projecting himself onto the character and using Sheridan expressing his thoughts. And I've suspected, and I didn't do enough to put his own thoughts forward. Scott, if you would like to go to the hymnal.
Turn your books to page 436. So this is the last chapter of JMS's autobiography, Becoming Superman. The chapter's called Selah, which, if you remember from our episode of B5 back in the day, it's kind of a closing, and he talks about a lot of different people. And there's a section about Jerry Doyle. I'm just going to read it here. Jerry Doyle was better than Jeff, because he had talked about Jeff Conway first. Jerry Doyle was better than Jeff at hiding his alcoholism, but the cost was no less substantial. He was slick and funny and could function on set as if nothing was amiss. I don't have an alcohol problem, he'd say. As long as there's alcohol, I don't have a problem. But I'd grown up with an alcoholic and knew the signs very well. The few times we touched upon the topic in private, he'd change subjects, reluctant to discuss it. So I began putting the words I wanted him to hear into the mouth of his character, Michael Garibaldi, who was also, and not coincidentally, a recovering alcoholic. Don't think I don't know what you're doing, Jerry said, as he passed my office one afternoon, after the latest script in with Garibaldi's alcoholism had been distributed. I kept hoping that the words would go through, but they never did. During the finale of Babylon 5, when everyone leaves the station for the last time, Jerry paused beside the elevator and, in an unscripted moment, picked up the shot glass off the bar and carried it away with him. It was his way of telling me that I'm not going to change. I am what I am. And then, Nicole, here's where you're prepared to be sad. After putting in 5 years as a lead of a TV series, Jerry was confident that there would be plenty of work waiting for him after Babylon 5 came to an end. Instead, he drifted from one small part to the next without ever managing to land another recurring role. After his run for Congress in 2000 ended in a humiliating defeat, and his conservative radio show, The Jerry Doyle Show, began tapering off, he entered 2015 hemorrhaging sponsors and money, drinking heavily. To his credit, Jerry reached out a little to the few friends who he had felt could help him with his problem, but still refused to seek formal treatment, fearing it would jeopardize his career. His decision not to let anyone know he was suffering meant that there was no one to help him on July 27, 2016, 11 days after his 60th birthday. With his financial resources nearly tapped out, confronted by the fact that his career had flamed out, Jerry consumed so much alcohol so quickly that he essentially drank himself to death. The coroner ruled the death as technically accidental, but also ascribed it to complications from chronic alcoholism. Anyone who knew Jerry would tell you that he could talk nonstop for hours on any subject, but he was incapable of seeking help at the one moment when he needed it the most. And I gotta tell you, we've shared some stories here. I lost an aunt to the very same thing. She drank herself to death one night. And when I went with my mother to clean out her apartment, on her refrigerator was a dry erase board, and it was reasons why I shouldn't drink. And one of the reasons that she had on there was because I feel terrible when I do. And I just think, I wish that, like Sheridan, you should have done things sooner. And I wish that, like Jerry, she would have reached out more. So, I mean, it's painful to watch. It really is. Nicole.
Oh, fuck, now I don't even want to make my points.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm sad now. That really was sad. I guess my only thought was when Kevin was talking was, how do you know when it's the right time to say something to somebody who's in active addiction? You know what I mean? Like, when is the point where you need to step up and say so? There's really no right or good time, I think. Obviously, in this situation, he probably shouldn't have been the head of covert security, but whatever. It's a TV show. It's not real. Just a point of it's hard to know when the right time to step up and say something is, if you even have the gall to do it, because it's hard to do that, to confront somebody who's in active addiction and try to help them. And then my other thought was, maybe I read this wrong, but from what I understood was Sheridan was basically telling him, we're here for you, we care about you, but we're done. Like, it's done. Like, you have to fix it now. Like, they're not tolerating it anymore. So like, they're not going to allow it to happen and allow him to continue being in a point of power. So to me, what my read on the scene was, we care about you, but we're done with your shit. Get it together. I've been in that position where I've had to put my foot down with somebody that I cared very much about. And I said, listen, I love you and I'm going to be here for you, but I'm not going to support this or be helping you along anymore. You're going to have to get this squared away. Unfortunately, it came down to the point where a bunch of us had to kind of band together, put our foot down and stop giving him resources and helping him, because until he got his stuff together, he was never going to help himself.
Jessi.
Holy shit. Thank you for reading that to me. I'm so glad that I didn't get to read that in the beginning. To answer Nicole's question of when is the right time is what's ever right for you, in my opinion. You can speak up from day one and continue to speak up until you're blue in the face, or you can hold off until you think you can't hold off any longer. And it's all about what works for you. But you have to understand that this is a disease and it's not rational. So at the beginning of my career, I always took the stand. I would ask everybody that I came across that was any kind of addict, why do you do what you do? Why do heroin? Why continue to do heroin? You have a bunch of babies and they're beautiful. Why do you do this? And I was looking at from a rational, non-addict standpoint of like, you have all of this stuff to not do it. Why didn't you just do it? And after being in my career for so long, I've realized that drug use and alcohol use is very fucking irrational. It is not a choice that somebody wakes up and is like, hey, I think today sounds like a good idea for heroin. It comes from years and levels of like bullshit and trauma and all of the things that lead to you being an addict. So understanding that it's a disease and not a rational choice may or may not help you. Fuck that. It might hurt your feelings every single day when they continue to choose that over their family. But I definitely learned some valuable lessons working with addicts and just being from a family full of fucking addicts. I struggle with it with my own, and I won't go into how close the individual in my family is, but you know, they take the standpoint of marijuana is okay. So they wake up at like 6:30 in the morning and they smoke weed, and they smoke weed all day long. And it's like, dude, you're high all the fucking time. You're altering your brain all the fucking time. And I took that stance from the beginning of like, hey, we had this thing where we called it the circle of trust. And we would enter the circle of trust and nobody would get mad at each other for whatever was said. And so I entered the circle of trust in the beginning and I said, hey, I'm worried about this, you know, this marijuana use. I feel like you may have a problem. And I was told, no, it's cool. I got it. Fast forward 10 fucking years and this individual stays high all the fucking time. And if it was alcohol, we would be like, hey, hi, I feel like we need to go to meetings, but because it's marijuana, all of a sudden everybody thinks it's okay. So just understand that there's no right, like Nicole said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It really isn't. It's about whatever works best for you. So if they don't have any desire, like it sounds like Jerry Doyle did not, he's not going to get clean and he's eventually going to die. He can say all day long, yes, I feel like I should stop drinking, but that desire to continue drinking until that desire of overcoming whatever it is stronger than the desire to get drunk, it's not going to happen.
Kevin?
The really rough part of addiction is that if they're not ready to do what needs to be done to do the work and put it behind them, there's no amount of support and trying to convince that is going to do it. They have to want to get better, and that unfortunately doesn't always happen. I know that from experience.
Yeah, the last thing I was going to add was, and Jessi, you alluded to it, I did appreciate that the script definitely made it clear that alcoholism is not a choice. It is a disease, because Lyta said, I can't fix that. Even I can't fix that. I was like, oh, that was smart. I like that. Anything else people want to add about the episode before we get into questions, predictions? Jessi.
I feel so sorry for Londo. Meh. I didn't love it. Listen.
Meh.
meh. For the first time, you know me, I'm like, fuck that. Londo's not, forgiven for all the bullshit that he did. And I understand that this is probably his bed that he's laying in, but it was still sad to see. And I didn't love it.
Blake.
Well, I want to touch a little bit on Jakar and what's going on with his people and their attempts to make him a deity and put all this power on him. They even talked about it. Half the people want him to come back, the other half want him to endorse them. And there's all of these issues. And even what got Delenn screaming bastard was the Narn threatening to block shipments of stuff if they didn't return Jakar to the Narn homeworld. And the part that I really pulled out of that and I liked, and we've already had so many light and fun subjects on the show this evening that let's just add religion and God into it while we're at it and hit theology and just go for the trifecta tonight. But one of the things Jakar made the comment about is, this is how I've come to be seen by my people. Despite my best efforts, I've become an icon. I don't understand why or how until I saw this. And he's showing this statue that they made of him. And he says, I realized it's simpler to make a statue to someone who you believe embodies all of your better qualities than it is to actually improve yourselves. And I think you can look at that in so many instances, especially with communities. In JMS, again, Scott has the hymnal handy, and there's several chapters on this in the hymnal of Straczynski. But you've got so many people that have the icons or the images of Christianity, but when you look at their behavior or their actions, I mean, there's the quote out there about the problem with Christians is they're so unlike Christ, and it's that projection. And I think JMS puts that in here. And that's one of the things I've always loved about this show is it can take topics like theology and it can honor theology in episodes like Parliament of Dreams or and the Rock Cried Out, No Hiding Place. There's these episodes that can honor theology and can honor belief. And then there's these episodes that have these little pieces in it that can also push back on the worst parts of theology and the worst parts of belief. And I love how this show has done that in the writing, and it handles it so well that you can pass over these moments if you're really not looking for it. And I think it's a credit to the writing, but also making people think even 30 years later with the conversations on this show and the messages it's giving about religion, about all of these different things. And it's not just religion. You could apply the same lesson to politics with people turning candidates into icons rather than work on doing any type of improving of themselves or doing anything themselves because they put these candidates or political figures up as almost icon status.
Wait, Blake, whoever could you be talking about?
I mean, it could go anywhere that way, Mike. So I think you could really make that argument to either party there. But really, it just does get into that thing of how willing people are to turn things into icons and project these better ideas rather than actually try to be better or do something themselves.
Anybody else? Are y'all done?
Listen, I hope there's no more fucking episodes about alcohol. I can't handle it. Like, I'm fucking watching it and I'm like, God damn it, not again. Fucking Garibaldi, get it together. But I feel like maybe that's just some example of what alcoholism is.
Well, I can't tell you if you're going to have any more alcohol episodes. I will say we're going to have a movie about holographic whores. And I'm not even joking.
Whores?
Whores.
Whores. Okay.
Yes.
Horses.
A holographic whorehouse. That's all.
Like I'm praying for all you whores. Okay, got it.
or if we're quoting 2.5 Men, whores.
Whores. You're also going to have a movie about buttholes.
About what?
Buttholes.
Butthole.
Coincidentally,
it's actually the same movie.
Same movie.
Mike and I are going to get matching butthole tattoos. Watch out.
There are buttholes and whores in the same film.
I was going to pull a Kevin and go one step further, but I'm just not going to.
Pull a Kevin? What are you talking about?
Sadly, we don't see Lockley's butthole.
Sadly? Who's sad about? Oh, no, we're moving on.
Not for a lack of effort, though.
We'll get to that when we get to that. Okay.
No.
Yes, you will.
I don't want to get to that. Thank you.
Kevin will be very happy when that scene happens.
He's not going to say a word. Let's go ahead and move into questions and predictions. And we've got 4 episode proper left. Or 3, I'm sorry. 3. So I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions and a lot of predictions here. Nicole, questions, predictions.
How is this whole Garibaldi Lyta thing going to play out? Like, are they going to get found out? or are they gonna like successfully take down the Psy-Corps? Because that's pretty big. Will we get to see Delenn and Sheridan's child and like meet David? Will we get to know a little bit more? Will we get to see her with a pregnant belly? Will we get to meet the character? All that good stuff. Will we ever see Jakar again? Because he said he's leaving and he might not be back. So I can't imagine having B5 without seeing Jakar again. So those are my three really biggest questions. Prediction wise, I don't really have one because I don't know what the hell is going to happen next.
Emily, questions, prediction.
Well, my one question was answered because it was in my first impressions was this actually about Jerry Doyle, or was this intended prior to his issues? And then my other actual question is like, what or how much does Lyta destroy if she's essentially a doomsday weapon? Like, does she end up taking out way more than Psy-Corps?
Jessi, questions, predictions.
No, for the love of God, is this thing gonna ever end?
Never.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like we're on like year 19 and a half.
So Ryan really wants you to watch Crusade, so we could make it go longer.
Hey, Ryan. No.
Sorry they forgot you, Ryan.
When you said this thing, did you mean the series or just this episode?
God damn it. This whole goddamn series. Listen, I love it. I loved it up until recently, and it's great still, but we're moving on.
Or were you referring to friendships with some of us at this point?
No, listen, can we just take a second and just like give ourselves a high five for still being in contact at this point? Like, I honestly thought like 2 or 3 episodes in, we were just not going to be speaking at this point. But here we are. We're still friends. So I guess that means we're actually friends, not just.
Well, Scott's exit strategy didn't work out.
Hey, I had a 40% chance it was going to work. But dark humor. Okay.
Can't laugh about it.
You have to, or you don't stay sane.
I don't have anything else. I have no fucking. I just want this to end for the love of God.
I want this to end, please. Okay. On that positive note, now that we've talked about terrorism, abortion, alcoholism, and wanting it all to end, let's go ahead.
I have a new segment.
Oh, good. Jessi has a new segment. Hold on. Tap the brakes. We're not done yet.
Nope, we're not. And I, you know what? No, it's not ever going to end. To all of you out there with that bingo card. Okay. So instead of conspiracy theories, because I am going to, by the way, I'm going to do for Blake recorded review of the science of time travel, just because I'm now getting bored with all of my other books. And I think that, you will all be entertained by me stumbling through some bullshit that I don't understand. But until then, we are going to do a new segment quickly without the permission of anybody involved called Never Have I Ever. I'm just going to ask 3 questions. I just need you all quickly to say yes or no. Have you ever cursed at a stranger? By a show of hands, and I will count them. Cursed at a stranger?
Did they have to
I've worked
hear
retail,
it?
no shit.
Did they have to hear it? No. Did you just curse?
Fuck.
I did yesterday. I was driving.
So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
Why you could turn the microphone off in the
6.
bank drive-through. It was fucking fantastic.
I just noticed my camera is mirrored and I can't tell how
And
to
Kevin,
put my
you
hand
know
up.
who I'm talking about.
I've got 7 of the 7 of us on here that have cursed at a stranger. You're all terrible people. The next
Yes.
question, there's actually 3
As
too,
are
by the
you.
way. Have you ever ended up on a no-fly list? Show of hands.
Jesus.
Anybody?
You got to
No?
work at that.
That's a 0. Okay. The last one, and I fucking know
More
the
effort
answer
than
to
this
this
group
one.
puts out.
Has anybody ever written boobs on a calculator? Show of hands.
Yes.
7 out of 7, you fucking nerds. Moving on. What?
Millennials turn it upside down and
Yep.
we're all good.
800. Yep. Or 58008. You're all
That
welcome for
escalated
that.
quickly, by the way. Did you ever curse at anyone? Have you ever written boobs? Are you on a no-fly list?
Listen, there's levels to this shit. I just wanted to make sure that we were check. Is everybody listening? Moving on.
We should we consider doing the live episode that was not meant to be? And like, I feel like this week after this super depressing episode would
Do that game.
That would be a good, doing a game or something.
Like
to
doing
lighten
that
the
game
mood.
specifically, that would be fun.
Yes, I think it would be delicious. I did say delicious.
Would be delicious.
Fuck is wrong with me?
Delectable.
So
boys.
many things.
And Scott, before you tell the millennials to go spell boobs on their calculators, you might need to tell them what a calculator is, because if you do it on the phone, it doesn't work the same.
Do you remember when we were kids?
Do
and,
you remember?
And when they always told us, you got to learn how to do the math longhand because you're not going to have a calculator all the time. I'm holding up my fucking phone, assholes.
You're a bunch of fucking liars.
It should have been so you understand how the numbers work.
Hey,
Not because you won't have a calculator.
Yeah, here's the thing: is I see those people that post the Facebook. If you can solve this equation, most people get it wrong, and most people do get it wrong because they don't know how to do fucking math.
I don't know how to do fucking math. I'll admit it.
Okay, can we be done now?
Yes.
Excellent.
Anyway,
Okay.
no,
we
never
can't.
I'm good. I'm good with doing that. I would love to play this game. I wanted to play that game, and then Blake fucking just crushed my soul.
Okay, so if you want to hear this game and watch this game on our YouTube channel, click that notify button, that bell icon, so you know when we do go live, because it's sporadic with us. We may do it, we may not, we don't know when, but if you click that bell icon, you'll be notified exactly when we go live, so you can join in the delicious debauchery. It'll be great.
And it usually happens better if people don't cancel 15 minutes before we're supposed to.
I understand that. God damn it! I didn't say it was your fault. I just said you were crushing my soul.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Welcome to Peoria. Okay.
We are going to go ahead and have our newbies eject. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can exit with our newbies. If you do want to be spoiled, you can stick around with our Beyond the Rim segment. And be sure to like, subscribe, follow. Go check out our social medias. And again, click that bell icon on our YouTube page, which if you're listening to your podcast version, the YouTube link is in the show notes. Until next week, I have been Scott, and with me has been
Kevin,
Jessi,
Nicole,
Mike.
Oh, fuck it.
Emily,
and Blake.
Fucking Blake.
Fucking Blake.
Somebody had to screw it up tonight.
And we'll see you next week with Objects in Motion.
We promise that it'll be happier.
You guys have a good night. It was so
Did
fun.
anyone have a prediction?
Doodles.
No.
I didn't miss one, did I?
Fuck the prediction. Fuck this show, first of all.
Oh, wow,
Fuck your
okay.
prediction.
Yes, I predicted that Jessi is never speaking to some of us again.
That is a correct fucking prediction.
You're not
welcome.
You think you're done. This is
It's
cute.
Kevin. I'm never going to speak to Kevin again.
What did I do?
You're just Kevin.
Thank you for listening to Grey 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast at anchor.fm/Grey17podcast or youtube.com @Grey17podcast. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Patreon. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Grey 17 is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Warner Brothers or any other owners of the Babylon 5 copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purpose of review, and no infringement is intended. The opening and closing themes are available from Falling Matter on YouTube.
And what's out there?
The rim,
And beyond that?
the truth.
Welcome back to Beyond the Rim. Again, this is a spoiler section if you have not watched past Wheel of Fire, which if you haven't, I have no idea what the hell you're doing. Leave now, because we're going to kind of spoil things for the last 3 episodes. But let's get into these questions, guys. First one, how much of the pregnancy do we see? Well, we see the labor and we see Delenn pushing and all of that. Wait, never mind. Will we meet the child?
No.
David is referenced, and they talk about him in pretty much just the future Flash, but there isn't anything more done. We even speculated when we were going to be watching Road Home that they had a David Sheridan.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure if it was going to be the son or the dad, and it ended up being the dad. So we definitely not met him.
And then Road Home reset everything at the end. So
Yeah. And we talked about this a while ago when we did our special episode about the original plan for Babylon 5 with Babylon Prime, and David was going to become an idiot savant savior of the universe. So I'm kind of glad we didn't meet David, because that was a stupid idea. I'm sorry, JMS. I didn't like that idea at all. Does Jakar really leave? Will we see him again? Yeah, we're going to see him leave next episode.
Yeah, he does leave, but he does come back because we know what his fate is.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll only see him one more episode proper, but then we'll also see a portion of him in The Road Home. So, but we're
and
almost
Legend of the
done with
Rangers
Jakar.
if you can stomach it.
Oh my god. That's the one thing. If we wouldn't have got Legends of the Rangers not being crappy and it would have become a series, the only thing positive out of that was we would have got more Jakar because he would have been the series proper. But yeah, that didn't work. Sorry, Sci-Fi Channel. Will the plot with Garibaldi and Lyta come to fruition, or will it be discovered? Not
Never
here.
really see it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a telepath conflict. It is not dealt with in the show, partially because JMS wanted to keep that for potentially other stories, which is also why there is a whole bunch of books about the telepath war, but they really don't tell you much. We do know at the end of the day, Lyta and Lanier, again, I don't fucking understand this. Lyta and Lanier will blow up Psi-Corps headquarters, and that will be the end of the telepath war. But yeah.
We don't have to talk about this a lot, but I think that's what I was getting at in the main show was we all kind of, it seems like, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but it seemed like we kind of agree that the whole Lanier thing is character assassination. And I just wanted everyone's perspective on how they viewed the Lyta situation and whether they viewed that anywhere close to being similar.
Yeah, I don't, because like I said in the main show, I think this follows her arc. I get what Jessi's saying, but for me, this makes perfect sense that she would turn towards this path.
Yeah. I think I agree with that more than I don't.
It's definitely I think you sum it up the best way by saying that, Kevin, because I have to admit that even as I watch it and try to rationalize it, I can take every chunk and every turn and think about it in a way to make it make sense to me. But if I look at it as a whole, it doesn't sit right for some reason. And I think that's just the general vibe that maybe some of the other guys get too, is that it just doesn't, it feels uneven. And maybe that's as much because of how big the cast is, how little time gets devoted to each person. You only see them a couple of times throughout the episode. I mean, we had a fine example of that again where, Jessi thought that Lockley's reveal of having substance abuse in her past was like a new thing. Well, no, it happened. We got a tidbit of it, but it was like 10 episodes ago. Like,
the thing that rings the most true with me is that power corrupts, and she definitely has an enormous amount of power. And I think that's the thing that kind of overrides the rest of it for me.
Yeah, but she's going through mourning. She suddenly has a lot of resources at her disposal, and she suddenly has a lot of power at her disposal. And just doesn't know what to do with any of it.
And from growing up with the Psi-Corps, her entire experience at Babylon 5, her experience with the Vorlons, she has been pushed around her entire life. Now it's finally time that she can push back. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of already answered this, but how much does Lyta destroy? Does she take out more than just Psi-Corps? Not really, but she'll. But with the alternate universe, she'll blow up Babylon 5. We'll see that in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that is a great scene in that movie with Jakar and Lyta. They're both badasses, and I love it.
But not in a terrorist
No. They're like, we're just going to take all the shadows with us. It's going to be fine.
Oh, I'm not using her telepath powers either.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That's the only thing about if they had made it into more than just anger and lashing out at Psi-Corps, I would have called bullshit on it. So I'm glad that that didn't become part of it.
The one thing I wanted, and I should have made the connection with the newbies here, but you again see that this was definitely supposed to be the Talia character, not Lyta. When we have you're now more than a P12, that could have easily been Talia. But when actresses leave, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Because I think I even made that comment early on with Talia was we would see a telepath coming into the show later that they utilized more with the storylines that had maybe the actress hung on a little bit longer, but I get why she left. At that point, they weren't using the character that much at all. Storylines came later.
And there is also an alternate universe where Ivanova falls in love with Byron, and Lyta's just on the side and gets shit on even more. So that's great. That's
I'm really glad. Could you have imagined Jessi's reaction?
Yeah.
If it was Ivanova boffing Byron.
I'm really glad we didn't get that. I'm really glad.
Okay, on that note, let's go ahead and end this episode. We'll be back next week with Objects in Motion. And please be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and check out our social medias. We really do appreciate all of you hanging on with us throughout this. We've only got a few episodes left, but there's a lot of big stuff coming, and we'll be finishing it all up with what I think is probably one of the best series finales of all time. So I'm looking forward to getting there in a few weeks, and we'll have you all join us for that. So thanks, everybody, and until next week, I've been Scott, and with me has been
Kevin,
Mike,
and Blake.
And we'll see you. Bye.
I tell you, the next person who acts irrationally, I swear I'm going to shoot myself in the head.
Bastards!
Did she just?
She did.
I'll get the gun.